proceed to the treatment of special needs or unusual offenders. So special needs offenders are incarcerated offenders with special needs stemming from their physical or mental age or other disabilities. Special needs can encompass many types of conditions like offenders with severe psychological needs, mental retardation, significant psychiatric disorders, behavior disorders, multiple handicaps, neurological impairment, offenders with physical handicaps or chronic or terminal illnesses, or elderly offenders or offenders with several social and or educational deficiencies, learning disabilities or language barriers, or offenders with special security or supervision needs such as protective custody cases, death row inmates, and those who chronically exhibit potential or aggressive behavior, or sex offenders for whom appropriate treatment may reduce the risk of reoffending. So the substance abuse is a major cause of creating special needs offenders in the society. Special needs offenders are to be given special attention during intake and incarceration. So this special offenders or offenders that need special attention are those who doesn't have the capacity to, or are individuals who are not normal individuals, or so this includes maternal women. Proper evaluation and assessment has to be conducted during the intake of these offenders. The state departments of correction and various other agencies work closely in the treatment process of special need offenders through programs such as community policing, community-based correction, and community citizen integration. So first, let's move to the adult with special needs. So this adult with special need means a person 18 years of age or older who requires care or supervision to meet the person's basic needs, prevent physical injury or injury to others, and avoid placement in an institutional facility. So there is a special offender law. This may include among the others criminal offenders with mental health problems, juvenile offenders, or sex offenders. Because the definition of special offenders law varies greatly, local laws should be consulted for requirements in an area. The following is an example of a state classification of a special offenders based upon the increased risk to the safety around them. The first is registered sex offenders and predatory pedophiles, gang members, child abusers, offenders with a history of domestic violence. So that's it. So next, let's proceed to the prisoners with terminal illnesses. The imprisonment of offenders who have been diagnosed with terminal illness exacerbates the suffering inherent in the sentence due to the predicted health of the prisoner is irrelevant in terms of social reintegration. States are therefore advised to introduce legislation and policies that provide for community sanctions and measures for offenders with terminal illness at all stages of the criminal justice process to enable them to receive the medical care they require and to die in dignity, surrounded by their family and friends rather than the isolating environment of prisons. So next is, let's proceed to the emergency plans. Jails and prisons, state and federal, public and private, must maintain essential functions in the event of an emergency. The mission of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, or the BOP, is to protect society confining offenders in the controlled environments of prisons and community-based facilities that are safe, humane, cost-efficient, and appropriately secure. During an emergency, the BOP, local jails, and prisons must still carry out the tenets of their respective missions. So, in order to effectively operate in the event of an emergency, an agency can have or should take some preparedness measures. So, first one is protection. So, this is necessary to ensure or to secure the homeland against both terrorist acts and man-made natural disasters. Next is mitigation. This is necessary to reduce the loss of life and property by lessening the impact of disasters. Next is response. This is necessary to save lives, protect property and the environment, and meet basic human needs after an incident has occurred. And last is the recovery, which is necessary to assist communities affected by an incident to recover effectively. So there are steps as an individuals or agencies can take to protect against, prevent, mitigate, respond, or to recover from emergency situations, regardless of the event's origin. It is crucial that country jails and prisons have an emergency operations plan, also known as continuity of operation plans of business continuity plan. So the first one is exercise tabletop or full scale. This would help agencies informally utilize the incident command system and command post activation. Participants are given an opportunity to evaluate current emergency operations procedure plans and capabilities. So exercises also address various areas of concern within a facility, response time, medical necessity, and recovery efforts. So for example, a facility within a flood-prone area should address various aspects of concern if the facility is threatened with a flood. So a flood exercise should help prepare a facility to answer such questions. Like for example, at one point do we no longer shelter in a place? What are our backup facility if we do not need to evacuate? How will we transport the inmates? What measures do we have in a place to provide medical care to staff and inmates during an evacuation? And if sheltering in a place, do we have enough food to sustain ourselves for a period of time? So that's the some of the questions that are frequently asked in order to assess what are the best thing to do in order to have proper plans. So the preparedness is enhanced by addressing the various aspects of LIP prior to an emergency, which can greatly affect enhance and agility an agency's resilience. Instituting prevention, protection, and mitigation efforts can directly affect the response and recovery ventures. So let's proceed to the movement, transfer, or of prisoners or detainees. So these are the following procedures in transferring prisoner or detainees. So the first one is managing prisoner movements, unlock regimes, and prisoner work party handover. Prisoners at risk of themselves and segregation of prisoners. These procedures are designed to ensure that movements are coordinated, documented, supervised, and managed to ensure prisoner safety and compliance with custodial requirements and reintegrative services. Prisoners at risk to themselves are identified on reception and are managed to minimize the risk of self-harm. And lastly, the requests for segregation are completed appropriately and the directions and recommendations. So this is the written transfer. A prisoner can be transferred at any time. So prisoners are responsible for telling their families where they are. And the common reasons for a transfer include access to services and facilities, rehabilitation, and progression to a lower security prison, and the prisoner is inducted at a new prison and property and approved telephone list transferred with the prisoner. So prisoners may be transferred from one prison to another for a number of reasons. So it can be very difficult to transfer as 78 out of 130 prisons are overcrowded at the moment. There is no automatic right to be in the prison that you choose. So the law says that someone can be held in any suitable prison. However, the prison services should consider circumstances so that the people are encouraged to maintain family ties where possible. So that are some of the factors that should be considered when transferring prison or detainees. So the prison services also has a duty of care if you are experiencing serious difficulties with other prisoners. People may be moved if prison staff are concerned about their safety or believe they are at risk from other prisoners. Usually, prison staff will ask for evidence and details of the threats against the prisoner before arranging a transfer. So the prison staff are also supposed to consider medical disability. This applies to someone or to the person in prison in their family. So if your visitor finds traveling difficult to prison, the prison should take this into consideration. It is useful to provide medical evidence if you can. So sometimes prisoners move so that they can serve the final weeks of their sentence in a prison nearer their home or local discharge, or that's the term. Ideally, this gives someone the opportunity to make links for resettlement, coordinate their release with their family and external offender manager before release. So, the next topic is the privileges of detainees and sentenced prisoners. So, here are the prisoner rights. The discipline and security are principal concerns in jails and prisons in the United States. So, also here in the Philippines. As such, some rights granted to free citizens are limited or denied to prisoners. So, freedom of speech is usually limited, as are the rights to counsel and to not accuse oneself with infraction and crimes committed in the prison or jail are being investigated. However, other rights are still guaranteed as long as there are no security concerns. Inmates are free to practice their religion. So prisoners maintain their right to bail and equal protection. So the rights granted to prisoners also include the rights that are specific to incarceration. They are guaranteed separation based on age, sex, and criminal classification. So the prisoners are separated according to their age, because those minor um, cannot be put or cannot be joined together with those adult or elderly offenders. And also to their sex, they are classified according to their sex and criminal classifications. Clothing must be provided for felons. Prisons and jails must make a reasonable effort to protect inmates from violence and provide them access to legal education. Some form of recreation must be provided, and prisoners must have access to necessary and reasonable medical attention. So next, they have the right to be free from personal abuse and right to be protected against the following. So first, any deprivation of his basic needs under normal situation. So it has been stated that the correctional facilities or the prison system is responsible for the basic needs of the prisoners. So they have the right to complain whatever they have experienced while being incarcerated if they are not given the basic needs or their daily needs in their everyday life. And next is corporal punishment. The use of physical force or solitary confinement or segregation as positive measures. So they have the right to complain about corporal punishment either from physical force or solitary confinement or segregation as positive measures. And they have the right to good conduct time allowance for good behavior. Of course, this has been discussed earlier about the right to good conduct time allowance for good behavior. So if an inmate or an offender will do good inside the prison, their sentence days will be deducted within 15 days from their release. So the right to have access to the following as far as predictable. So they have the right to have the access of medicine and health services, same services given from the community. Next is rehabilitation program, visitation and mail services, and free legal services and materials. So they also have the right to exercise his religious beliefs. Next, they have the right to air grievances and complain through proper authorities. Of course, they are human beings, so they should not be deprived with their rights to complain or to voice out. Next, right of women offenders to be personally attended, supervised by women officer without prejudice to male doctors, nurses, and social welfare officers from carrying out their professional duties in the institution for women. right of foreign nationals to communicate with their diplomatic and consular representatives. So next, let's proceed to the prisoners' privileges. So rights are guaranteed to all prisoners, but access to many prison privileges is based on behavior. So inmates with a history of infractions may be confined to their cells for longer periods of time during the day, or they may be forced to wear prison uniforms while other inmates can wear their own clothes. So this would base on their behavior inside the prison. So as a wearing of prison uniform is also a form of punishment. Other common privileges include access to entertainment, work, and money. Many prisons have televisions in common areas, but some inmates may have one in their cells to pass the time. Depending on the status of their imprisonment, they may also be allowed to work.